Welcome to the channel. Welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before getting into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with some of the quotes from Ruben Amorim's press conference yesterday, because he did make an interesting point and maybe gave us a little bit of a sense of direction of where we're going to be going forward in the transfer market. Um, so he had the following to say. He said, "We need time to improve the characteristics of the team. I said this last year. To give an example, the last game against Everton, we should have an Ahmad with a right foot to put on the other side to play against 10 men. It's these kind of characteristics that, in the meantime, we'll try to get to, but to be a better team. Are we the perfect setup to play this way? Not yet, but like any other team, we need time to put the right characteristics in every single position to be prepared for it." So Ruben Amorim was alluding to the fact and suggesting that he would like another Ahmad, but with a right foot to play as the left-sided wing back, and kind of alluded to the fact that because we don't have that profile of player, that's maybe, something that he would have been looking for to bring off of the bench against Everton for 10 men. I don't know how inverting and getting everybody in the middle of the pitch in an already congested area helps us going forward, but that could be the profile of player that maybe we're looking for. Because if you watched yesterday's video, the narrative doing the rounds at the moment is that United might not go for a midfielder in January because we might want to save the money and go for our top targets in the summer. There's updates on a few of the players that we're linked with, which I'm going to run through later on in this video. But doesn't necessarily mean that we can't go out and strengthen the team and strengthen the squad in January, maybe in other areas. So Amrim's effectively alluding to in his press conference that he would like another Ahmad type player to play in the left wing back position, but somebody that's potentially more right footed so that they can invert as well. And again, I'm sure you'll have your own opinion on that. I'm not sure, having everybody invert going into the center of a pitch in a congested area where you've got two number 10s, a striker, two midfielders cutting inside all the time. But, I'm not the Manchester United head coach. That's Ruben Amorim's decision. So does that mean that it would be more plausible if we can't get a midfielder in January that would then pivot and maybe go for a wing back or an attacker, somebody that can play, as a striker or in the forward positions, but they can also be converted to play in one of the wing back positions? Who knows? I mean, the player that springs straight to mind that we are linked with is Semenyo. Now, Dean Jones has done the following article off the back of Ruben Amorim's press conference, saying that Man United want Amad Diallo 2.0 in January, as sources reveal wing-back appeal for Antoine Semenyo. So in the report, he says that Manchester United are expected to search for another Amad Diallo-type player in the January transfer window as the Red Devils look to strengthen their attacking depth. Diallo has become one of the most influential players in Man United's system, as the team often lacks balance and fluidity when he is missing from his wing-back role. I would agree with that. The 23-year-old Ivory Coast international has made 10 starts and one substitute appearance in the Premier League for the Red Devils so far this season, scoring one goal, giving 2 assists in the process. The Man United coaching staff want the flexibility to use Diallo as a number 10 on occasion, which heightens the need for an additional wide options and greater tactical versatility. And then he goes on to say there's a growing feeling among United sources that Man United are seeking more players capable of carrying the ball and playing on the front foot. United appreciate Semenyo's versatility and believe he could operate in multiple roles, including as a wing-back, making him an appealing target if they move forward with plans for a January edition. And then it goes on to mention around his release clause. Dean Jones does say that, however, it is not yet clear whether United view the clause as good enough value to justify a bid, particularly as the club also intends to bring in a central midfielder. And I'm going to go through the midfield news in a second. So coming off of the back of Ruben Amorim's press conference, where he's basically alluded to the fact that he would like an Amad Diallo, but with a right foot to play on the left-hand side. Dean Jones, we've obviously been linked with Semenyo. I think Semenyo could fit the bill of what we're looking for, somebody that can play in the attacking positions, probably play as a striker if need be in the sort of situation that we are now, where, Cunha and Sesko are both out, which causes a massive headache for us, doesn't it? I was trying to do like, how do you line up? It's mad because this system, so many question marks around the system. But one of the ones is where you're missing two players, and all of a sudden it falls apart. But I don't know if that's because of the squad depth, because the quality in the squad is a massive drop off with Xerxes obviously not performing very well against Everton, not being given any chances this season, or is it actually a fault in the system because you need that many attacking players to cover for one or two injuries, which is nuts. But Amorim alluding to it, and then does it make Semenyo more of a viable option for January? Because obviously the reports are that United remain interested. It's still seen that Liverpool and other teams are seen as favourites for United. But if we've got money still available, because let's not forget we did go for Carlos Baleba in the summer after we bought Mbumo, and like we'd done all of our transfer business apart from Lemens. We would have bid for Baleba if Brighton wanted to do or would allow us to talk to them. I know there was figures being banded, or the figures are still being banded around at like £100 million and stuff. But the report at the time, I think it was from David Ornstein or Laurie Whitwell, was that United had got wind that maybe they would be willing to do a deal at around 60, £70 million, around that figure, if memory serves me right. So we've still got funds available. And then also I was thinking about this as well, with the changes coming to PSR and the way your monetization in that works. Does it give teams more of an opportunity to spend big in January, because the fact PSR is going to be scrapped in the summer, and with a monetization, you could maybe do a deal, and if it's only going to be 10 million quid or 20 million quid with the way the PSR rules, and like, do you have more money to go and spend in January because you're not having to then worry so much about PSR? I don't know. I haven't seen the answer to that. I'm no financial expert neither, but no one has come out to suggest actually, yes, clubs might be able to spend more money in January because of the scrappage of PSR, because they don't have to worry so much about it. And maybe, because if we buy someone for like Cunha, for example, was 60 million, let's say, but it's £20 million over 3 years, so it's only £20 million off of this PSR books. So I don't know if that's possible or not. I'm waiting for somebody to come out and maybe explain it a little bit better, what it actually means for clubs in January. Could we then pivot though for Semenyo as an alternative instead of going for the midfielder? Do you then go for someone like Semenyo who's got that release clause? Who knows? Who knows? I'll pay attention to it. It feels a little bit, that feels like a little bit, even though Dean Jones is fairly decent, can be. I've always found him to be decent. He's not a Romano or an Ornstein. It did feel a little bit like, let's jump on the bandwagon, putting two and two together. Ruben Amorim said that he wants an Amad Diallo 2.0. Semenyo fits the bill of what you would be looking for. Someone that could play as a wing back, could play as a one of the number 10 positions as well. Can play on the left, can play on the right because he's 2-footed. And we are linked with Semenyo. Let's see what happens. But give us your shouts on that in the comments below. I'm sure you'll have plenty to say regarding that. Now, in terms of midfield, this came out yesterday from the Daily Mail. So Craig Hope in the Daily Mail said that Manchester City are ready to make England midfielder Elliot Anderson one of their top targets in 2026. City is said to be aware that both Liverpool and Manchester United will be interested in Anderson, and there's a feeling that that a player who will likely be an England regular for several years is too good to pass by. The word inside Premier League rivals is that it would take a fee in excess of £80 million to sign him. So, and I don't think that should come as a surprise. I think there is going to be competition for Anderson. I think there'll be competition for Wharton if we want to go for Wharton. I think there's going to be potentially competition for Baleba as well, because this report's come out, and it's a take with a pinch of salt sauce because it's coming from Court Offside, but they're suggesting that Tottenham are understood to sense a potential opportunity to rival Manchester United for the transfer of Brighton midfielder Carlos Baleba. And then in the report it says, speaking of sources, it seems Brighton will still insist on their €100 million valuation for Baleba, so it could make things complicated for Tottenham. And then it goes on to say that United and Spurs look like the main two teams to watch in the race for Baleba, with sources describing the 21-year-old as someone who's still highly regarded within the game. And then it says that Brighton don't see Baleba's recent performances as a huge concern. They feel they still have a €100 million asset there, so any clubs thinking about a cut price deal can forget about it. And then it also says that Tottenham are monitoring Baleba's situation. They sense there could be an opportunity there if United decide to focus on other targets. So, there is going to be competition for these players. I don't think there was for Mbumo in the summer, there was for Cunha, there was for Sesko as well. I mean, like, top players attract attention from top Premier League clubs. So we're going to, and the worry is, no European football. If we don't get into Europe, that could be a difference for some players. But as we saw in the summer, it didn't make a difference for others as well. And the reality is, Ineos and United are only going to go for players that want to come to United anyway. So it doesn't really matter if there's other clubs in, because if the player shows no sign of wanting to come to United, we're not going to get involved in bidding wars and offering silly wages and having to outbid teams in both the transfer fee and the salaries as well. So we'll just have to wait and see. It is a little bit alarming though, because if we're putting all our eggs in the basket of going for a midfielder in the summer, and then your rivals come in and outbid you, and then you lose out on that player, then that's a bit of a, we've shot ourselves in the foot there, haven't we? But again, it goes back to, what if we've got what, I don't know the PSR rules, but what if we could do something like that in January and do an absolute madness, because we've got the money there, and you can work out a deal so it doesn't impact you this year for PSR, and then PSR is getting binned anyway. And the Muppeteers did a good video on the new rules that are coming in place, and was suggesting that United are going to have a lot more money to spend in the summer as well. But we'll wait and see. We'll see what plays out. But I do think there's going to be competition for the players that we want, because they're good players, and that's the reality of the situation. Now, one player that we've already bought and is on his way to the UK. So he's put this on his Instagram post, but I got it from Romano's post saying Cristiano Roscoe is on his way to England, and he is signing at Manchester United. $1 million deal sealed for the clubbian midfielder. So he's on his way. And Roscoe did like a photo on his Instagram page of him with his agent at the airport. So that's one young midfielder that we are bringing in, very highly regarded. I'm not really concerned around us bringing in and going for these sort of players, because in fact, it's exciting because we haven't done these sort of deals before for far too long. We've been concentrating so much on investing so much into the first team, but in fact overpaying for players to come into the first team, that I think we've ignored a few of these young talents. It's just my concern around doing it is there's got to be a pathway to the first team. We have to see some young players starting to get introduced into the first team. Otherwise, they're all just going to not bother coming, because at the moment, we still have that reputation. We are still the club that will give young players a chance, but we're seeing less of that under Ruben Amorim at the moment. And I get why, we don't have the games, and I don't think Amram's in a position where he can where he wants to throw on youngsters. I think it's more of a will from Amram though than it is a skill of the young players personally. But yeah, that's the only concern I've got is there's got to be a pathway for some young players to actually come in and get some minutes from Ruben Amram. Otherwise, I do think players might start looking at it differently. And there was a story yesterday that brought me about Robinho Jr. and more reports coming out from South America saying that Manchester United have been tracking Robinho Jr. for a year. Although a deal is difficult at this stage, it's not ruled out that negotiations could progress towards the end of 2025. So that's interesting to keep an eye on. Again, could be another young player that we're looking at. Sully Talks is fairly decent. Broke the exclusive on this deal or on this player yesterday, I think it was. So yeah, keep an eye on that one. And the more talents we can get, the better. I'm not got an issue with us going for identifying and signing these sort of players. It's just there's got to be development. There's got to be a pathway into the first team for some of them. And if they're not good enough, then we can sell them and hopefully make a bit of money that way. But yeah, give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below, as I am sure that you will. Now, there was also a story I brought to you yesterday coming from Sport Build regarding a striker in Saru Guirassy. Now, Florian Plettenberg has said that Guirassy is one to watch for the summer, as he could leave Borussia Dortmund. The 29-year-old top striker is understood to have a release clause that should be at only around 50 million euros. It applies to 7 top clubs: Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Manchester United. So if he's available, 50 million euros, what's that, about around 40 to 44 million pounds, I think it is. For a 29-year-old, though, I'm not entirely convinced that'll be the profile that we would go for. But if you do, let Xerxes go and you want to bring in a striker, Guirassy's he's got experience. He's a good top goal scorer, but un-Premier League proven. I still have reservations about buying attackers from Borussia Dortmund personally, because we've been scarred by that so many times in the past. But he was doing it at Stuttgart before he went to Dortmund though as well. So he's yeah, be interesting to see, especially for that sort of price. If he is available for like around 40 million pounds, 50 million euros, just depends on what the club want to do, doesn't it? In the summer, I think it's a bit too too early to talk about strikers because obviously we've got Sesko and I know he's injured at the moment, but I think hopefully we'll know by the end of the season how he's developed and whether he can learn to pick up to the speed and stuff of the Premier League might make a difference. Because it was Dean Jones, I think, before that was saying United are torn between what to do with a striker because they don't want to bring in necessarily somebody like a Guirassy who's gonna want to play or potentially play ahead of Sesko. But then also we do know that we need rotation because, like I said, we've got two injuries and our entire squad and system feels like it's going to fall apart tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to see what Amram does do in that role. But again, does that say more about the system or more around the quality of the player? Because if we did have a Guirassy, then it's not an issue. Guirassy plays up front, and then obviously Mbumo, Mount, or whoever we play in the tens behind. I think the question mark is because Joshua Zirkzee is the backup striker, and at the moment, is he the right quality of player that we need? I'm not entirely convinced, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one for you. But give us your shouts on Guirassy as well in the comments. Now, there's also been another striker that we've been linked with as well. So this is in the Manchester Evening News saying that Manchester United, Everton, and Bayern Munich are said to be keen on FC Michelin striker Franculino Dju. The Toffees reportedly opted against signing the 21-year-old forward in the summer, but his recent performances have caught the eye. And it says the international. He's got 19 goal contributions and 3 assists from 28 matches and been a standout performer for Midtjylland. I don't know the credibility of the source, claiming United are also interested, and as well as Saudi Arabian teams for Dju, but they've rejected any offers because they want a record sale at them. And said both United and Everton have been quoted around 35 million euros, so 30 to 37 million pounds for this 21-year-old striker. Again, not a player that I haven't watched any of him. Watched his highlights and stuff though. No, it looks like a decent goal scorer. To be fair, was a little bit more impressed than what I expected to be. There's not much data out there on him though, on places like FBref and stuff like that as well. There's just not enough data because they don't generally cover the leagues where Michelin are playing and that in. But looks like a promising striker, knows where the back of the net is. 28 appearances, 19 goals, 3 assists so far this season, which is not a bad record at all. But again, it's a risky one, un-Premier League proven, young, developmental, up and coming. Would it get in the way of maybe Chido going in the first team? Who knows? Who knows? But it's an interesting link and an interesting profile of player. And definitely, like I said, from the brief research that I've done, I am no expert. I'm going to be completely truthful with that. But I watched, like I said, his highlights and stuff, and he did look like a decent goal scorer, and an interesting option. And Everton were debating whether to go for him in the summer as well, whether he could make the step up to Premier League. Again, it's one of these, isn't it? And I'd want to see a little bit more credibility than when that particular source or that story came from. But yeah, get us involved in the comments if you know more about the player. Get involved. I'm sure everyone will be interested to hear your thoughts if you know a little bit more. If you think he's going to be a good shout or a bad shout, get in the comments and let us know. Now, let's go through a little bit of exit news. So, there's been some reports from Turkey saying that Besiktas want to sign Bayindir, and they've made him their main target in January as well. I don't know about doing like goalkeeper upsetting the apple cart regarding that. I'm not bothered if Bayindir goes. He's not proven himself to be, United's number one quality, has he? When we've seen him, he's been, but as a backup or a number two, it's not a bad goalkeeper to have as like a backup option. But if he wants to go and play football, then it is what it is. But it's just, is that going to be a January deal? Are we going to have the time and effort needed to go in for a backup goalkeeper or a competition for Saint Lemons in January? Again, we'll have to wait and see. I suppose it depends on the player. If he agitates for a move, maybe we would look to do something like that in January. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one for you. And then the other exit I'm going to run through is Rashford. So this is coming from El Nacional, saying that Marcus Rashford has reportedly lost the confidence of Barcelona's dressing room, casting serious doubt over a permanent move to Catalonia next summer. And there's been a few. It's always mixed reports, though, isn't it, when it comes to Barcelona and Rashford? Some saying they're happy with him, they want to sign him. Others are saying no, they're not going to they're not happy with him. But ultimately, Barcelona are going to need to make their decision by the summer, aren't they? Because they do have the option, £26 million to buy him. If not, are we going to have another Rashford saga all summer? I would like to hope that he would know by then, and I think we could sell Rashford for the fee that we've agreed with Barcelona to another team. But the worry with that is his wages. Is he going to want to take it? Because to stay at Barcelona, he's happy to take a significant salary cut, but I don't know what his appetite would be if it was other teams that came in for Rashford. But it's a summer issue, and it's hopefully we'll know a little bit more between now and the summer regarding his form and if he's still performing well. Maybe Barcelona will, but again, they're one of these teams that you can never read and never tell because of their financial situation and stuff. But we'll just keep an eye on that one. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below, as I am sure that you will. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video, because as you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates, don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.